You are listening to part 3 of Who Killed Kelly on The Vault.
I got a phone call. I suppose that day I went outside and screamed. They said she drowned, but they suspected foul play because one of her shoes was over here and one was over there. So she put up a struggle. Grass was all matted down and could tell there was a struggle. Definitely. She was mighty.
It was just so fishy, that it was such a dead end and nobody knew anything. But it seems like all of these people knew plenty.
These women, had alleged that they warned one another about you, to not go with you in your blue vehicle.
Okay.
And they described these stickers on the window, for sale stickers.
It would be nice to have some of the answers, that we're seeking out, to bring that part of the justice. I don't want anything more to do with this. This is ridiculous. This was 40-something years ago. The guy was 6'3".
He was 6 foot.
If anybody knows something, say something.
All of the evidence the Minnesota BCA handed over to the Rock County Sheriff's Office on April 4th, 1985, is missing. It's gone. The shoes, the clothes, the beer cans and candy wrappers, the samples of hair found in Rhonda's car, and the semen sample. Gone. And there is no record of where it all went or what happened to any of it. The evidence is simply unaccounted for. And that is hard to accept. Here's Tanya, Kelly's niece.
That box of evidence is kind of a big deal. So the fact that it's gone is pretty unforgivable. It's, I don't know. It's pretty hard to wrap your head around the fact that somebody took it upon themselves to say, yeah, we don't need this for this open case.
On October 1st of this year, 2025, the Rock County Sheriff's Office swore in a new interim sheriff, Matt Sorensen. He replaced former Sheriff Evan Verbrugge. Since he was sworn in, I've spoken with Sheriff Sorensen over the phone a few times. I could tell from the start that this was a man who at least cared. When I first spoke with Sheriff Verbrugge months and months ago, he told me no one in the department aside from him even knew Kelly's name. After the first time we connected, Sheriff Sorensen told me he would personally look into the matter and try to track down the evidence. He was distraught, and I knew I could trust his word. A couple of weeks later, he reached out to me. He had combed through every box, every bag in their possession. Nothing.
Very frustrating as I sit here and look back at it, as why it got thrown away, but I don't know, or what happened to it.
I then asked him what his theory was. He looked into the timeline of the sheriff's office, the remodels, the moves, and the number of times the department turned over new leadership.
There's five changes in leadership over that time and many personnel changes in that time. So I can't speak for what they did or what they didn't do because I don't know what happened to it in that time frame or where the evidence ended up. So in 1984, when Sheriff Ole Holman signed for that evidence, back then we were in an older building, and it just went through a remodel. Previous to that, in 1983, he lived in the building with the jail, and basically his wife was the keeper of the. They'd answer phone calls, I guess, and dispatch right there themselves. And then they remodeled the sheriff's office in 1984. I don't know if I think that's when they started to contract with Nobles County on their prisoners. So the jail cells sat there empty. I can remember being in that building in the 90s, toured it, going through the old jail cells area. The old jail area was still there. There was stuff in them, cells, boxes. I have no idea what was in there. So I don't know when Sheriff Ullman got that, if he had a secure facility or secure area to keep that evidence, or if they just said, in 1984, they probably just set it in the corner of a room maybe and said, this is the evidence from that. And then in 1998, Rock County built a new law enforcement center, and we moved from the old center the old law enforcement building to the new law enforcement center. Again, I wasn't here then, but when they moved, that could have been a time where that evidence got picked up by somebody and got thrown away by not knowing what it was.
To provide some context, Kelly's case is 41 years old, yes, but cold cases from the 70s and 80s are actively being solved through advancements in DNA technology because departments adhered to the practice of collecting and preserving evidence in all open and active investigations, regardless of how cold a case was or how hopeless it seemed. Here are at least 2 recent examples relating to Minnesota cold cases. In March of this year, I attended the sentencing hearing for John Keith Miller, who was found guilty of the 1974 murder of 25-year-old Mary Schlaise. We covered this story in a recent series on the Vault, in Julie Trulson, Connecting the Dots. Mary was picked up hitchhiking on February 15, 1972 in uptown Minneapolis. Her body was found hours later in a rural part of Wisconsin, just over the border in Dunn County. She had been stabbed more than a dozen times, and her body was left on the side of the road. For more than 50 years, John Keith Miller evaded justice, until DNA technology finally caught up with him. See, John Keith Miller accidentally left his hat at the scene. The Dunn County Sheriff's Office kept that hat in evidence. By 2024, they were able to extract a DNA profile from the hat, and through forensic genealogy, they were able to trace that profile to its source, John Keith Miller. When confronted with the evidence, he confessed. Here's another. Nancy Doherty was 38 when she was found murdered in her home in Chisholm, Minnesota in 1986. She had been beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted. A semen sample from a vaginal swab was obtained during the autopsy and kept in evidence, along with scrapings from under her fingernails. By 2020, that evidence was used to create a DNA profile of the killer. Through the use of forensic genealogy, they found him, Michael Allen Carbo Jr. He was convicted in 2022. That conviction was overturned by the Minnesota Supreme Court, but Michael Allen Carbo Jr. stood trial for Nancy's murder again in 2025. Double jeopardy didn't apply because the first case was overturned. He wasn't found not guilty. This time, this year, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the murder and sexual assault of Nancy Doherty. As you can see, even small law enforcement agencies were in the business of preserving evidence in open murder investigations, even dating back to the 1970s and 1980s. Not knowing what happened to the evidence in Kelly's murder case is not the norm. Here is why I have a feeling the evidence box in Kelly's case was never taken to the new Rock County Sheriff's Office when they moved in 1998. In 2005, the Minnesota BCA ordered Kelly's body to be exhumed to potentially recover DNA evidence through advanced practices not previously available in 1984. The family was cautiously hopeful. Her body was taken from its resting place in a cemetery in Beersford, South Dakota, 35 miles south of Sioux Falls, and sent to the Minnesota's BCA lab for analysis. They were unable to retrieve a second sample DNA profile. Basically, they were not able to determine if anyone else's DNA was found on Kelly's body. The samples yielded no results. The file includes plenty of information on this effort, including the post-exhumation autopsy report. Yet investigators, at that point in 2005, did not fully revisit the case. They did not go back to interview potential suspects, persons of interest. They did not conduct any new interviews, as far as we can tell. And this is also absent from the report. Any mention of the evidence from 1984. That leads me to believe the evidence was already lost by then, in 2005, and even then they had no idea where it went. There is also something else strange about this situation. Not everything related to Kelly's case is missing from the Rock County Sheriff's Office. There is still a box with the case file and audio recordings of interviews conducted in the investigation. And in that box, in that case file, is the 3-page evidence list.
And so just to clarify though, you guys do have a box with the file in it or portions of the file?
Yep. We have the files, and that's what I will say is even somewhat more frustrating. We have the files, but we don't have the evidence. We have the interview reports and paperwork that shows that Sheriff Ullman got that evidence back from the BCA, but it just never lists where it went to after that.
So, if we are to theorize that someone in 1984 thought, well, heck, we don't need this box of evidence anymore, why keep the investigative file and not the evidence for a case that was not closed, an active investigation? I think we all know the natural question to ask next. Was there a cover-up involved? Before I do ask Sheriff Sorensen that question, I want to give you some more context into this theory. Information we had when it was confirmed that all of the evidence is gone. In the weeks after Kelly died, her sister Kathy took matters into her own hands. She couldn't just sit back.
How did he get lost? And that always brings me back to this off-duty police officer thing. Did he take it? You know?
And to preface what I'm about to say, I would like to clarify that we could not verify the following statements. In her quest for answers, Kathy spoke with Kelly's neighbors, friends, and regulars at the Frontier Bar. And she was told, multiple times, that Kelly left the Frontier Bar on May 26, 1984, with an off-duty police officer.
Just that they remember seeing her talking to an off-duty police officer. I mean, this was, I think it was the Rainbow Bar. You know, she lived downtown and she went different bars, you know, as kids do. But yeah, so that's where I was on a mission, talking to people, and quite a few of them remembered her. And several of them also said, yeah, we saw her talking to this off-duty police officer. I don't know how they knew he was off-duty, but...
Kathy brought this up with investigators at the time.
They just kind of, you know, shoved it under the rug. Like, well, that couldn't be.
There is nothing about this in the official investigative file. Sheriff Sorensen and I spoke about this.
When you're telling this story, people have that question because you have the missing evidence, and then you have, you know, like these, even without explaining that rumor, people are going to think the cops are behind this because of the missing evidence. So we need to give you guys an opportunity to address that. What are your comments on those theories?
You know, I would totally agree with a lot of people saying that, because losing evidence or misplacing evidence or the evidence is gone. what do we have to prove? Why did we lose the evidence? And I don't know when it disappeared. That's the thing. I'm not aware of any law enforcement involved in the case that personally, I guess, but then I wasn't involved in the investigation. I would, as law enforcement, I would hope it wasn't true, but unfortunately we have bad people in law enforcement. Every field of work has somebody bad in it. If we do, and we re-interview people and we could look at something like that and that comes up, seriously, we'd follow through with it. Not going to turn my head and say absolutely not. If that's a case, then it needs to be brought out.
So, where does this case go from here? Throughout this series, we've disclosed never-before-released information stemming from the official investigative file. We learned for the first time that there was a robust set of evidence, including a semen sample, a detail not previously disclosed to the family. And we learned the names of 2 people investigators once considered to be potential suspects, and another who maybe should have. And we were able to track down one of those people, Donald, who told us one detail of the night in question that differed from the story he told investigators. Granted, this is 40 years after the fact, but Donald told us he did not have his car overnight from May 26th to May 27th. After his interview in 1984, he was never spoken with again. The information has shed light on Kelly's case and story, and provided some hope that Kelly's family could get some answers. That was always the goal, from the start. Here's Jeff.
It would be nice to have some of the answers, that we're seeking out, to bring that part of the justice.
Along with hope and new information, though, has come frustration. For years, Kelly's family was told that the case was a dead end. No suspects mentioned, no evidence beyond her shoes.
It was just so fishy, that it was such a dead end and nobody knew anything. But it seems like all of these people knew plenty.
We have uncovered throughout this series that there is more law enforcement could have done and can do now. The Rock County Sheriff's Office, in coordination with the Minnesota BCA, will be reviewing Kelly's case file, according to Sheriff Sorensen. And while they're not disclosing every step that will be taken from here, Sheriff Sorensen gave us an idea of how his department and the BCA might proceed.
We're going to reach out to the prosecuting attorneys and see what else we can do, how far we can go and try to prove somebody that's guilty without evidence.
As I've been covering Kelly's story over these last few months, a consistent thought has been swirling around in my brain. I grew up hearing adults say it. Maybe you did, too. Life is not fair. The more years I spend on this earth, the more I comprehend the weight of that statement, that cliche. Life isn't fair. We feel it, we see it, and we experience it together. We witness injustice, sometimes through our screens in countries that seem to exist in another world altogether, and sometimes right in front of our eyes. We watch as the good ones, the bright lights in this world, are taken from us far too soon. Victims of horrific accidents or unrelenting illness. Their loved ones left behind to endure the ripple effects of grief. It is not fair, and it is so hard to accept. And then there are stories like Kelly's, a life taken by another. compounded by deeply unfair circumstances. Kelly was dealt a rough hand in this life, a life that ultimately was unfairly and viciously stolen from her and all of those who loved her and could have loved her. A semen sample that was never tested for blood type analysis. Potential suspects and persons of interest who were not fully vetted, their blood types never even asked or considered. Evidence that today could solve this case and bring justice and closure. Gone, missing, unaccounted for, with no explanation. It is all so deeply unfair, and Kelly deserved better. Kelly is gone. There is nothing that can change that. There is no bringing her back. But her story does not have to end here. Law enforcement still has work to do. And those out there who know what happened to Kelly have work to do too, to unburden themselves and set the record straight, to tip the scale ever so slightly in favor of fairness for Kelly and everyone left in the wake of her tragedy.
It's time. You know, they've had 40 years to have babies or to live their life or to have a career and build a home. And she didn't get any of that. She never got to meet her son as an adult. She didn't get to watch her nieces and nephews grow up and be a part of any of that, you know? It's criminal. If anybody knows something, say something.
If you know anything about the murder of Kelly Jean Robinson, call the BCA tip line at 1-877-996-6222. It is not too late. I want to thank the family of Kelly Jean Robinson for their contributions to this series, to Kelly's sister, Kathy, who has never stopped advocating for her sister, to Kathy's 3 children, in particular Tanya Dice, who was instrumental in obtaining the investigative file for this report, to Jeff Lucas, who shared his story with us, and to his wife, Jean, who has contributed so much on-the-ground research behind the scenes. Thank you to you all. If you are looking for an easy way to support the work we do at The Vault, leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts. 5-star ratings increase search visibility, which means more coverage for the cases we cover. The Vault is a Forum Communications podcast. I'm Trisha Turinskis. Thank you for listening.